I've brought you both together today because I know you've got lots in common, and you know each other a bit as well. To have a talk about grieving and grief and how important it is to grieve well. And I know that you've both done a lot of thinking about that. Sometimes you, Pat, sometimes with me, you, and Michelle, you and I haven't really met and haven't done that kind of talking, but I know you've been doing that talk with other people. And I'm going to hand over you two to have a chat with each other now. And I might just pop in now and again and see how the conversation's going, and see if we cover all the things that we talked about that were important. Yeah. Okay, over to you.
Hi, Michelle.
Hi, Pat. How are you?
Yeah, how are you?
Okay.
Good. We're going to be talking about death and dying for people with learning disabilities. How are you feeling today?
A little bit sad, but I'm doing okay. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm fine. I mean, you know, I think both of us think a lot about death and dying for people with learning disabilities, because it's quite important, because for people with learning disabilities, it's not always considered about, you know, people with learning disabilities don't even know until the funeral's already taken place and everything's done, and that's not good. How have you experienced death and dying?
When I found out that Alan was in hospital at first, and his when the hospital doctors was not directly talking to me, they were talking to my support worker and telling me. Then when his daughter came to the hospital, she wanted to take Alan home and have him stay at hers, and Alan didn't want that. He wanted to come home to me and die at home. So I had everyone get all the help. So we had the bed and every other equipment, and they were doing that. And so while they were getting all that prepared, Alan was put into community hospice for respite, so that they could get all the care put in place. And while he was in there, I could stay and all that, and so I used to go up and visit. And then when it was due for Alan to be allowed to come home, I got a call from the community hospice saying that could I come, because Alan hasn't got long to go, but if he travelled home, he might not have. He was so weak that it might not survive the travel. So I went and I stayed there. That's where he died in the Trinity Hospice. He died with a smile on his face, and I was there. And the other bit that I missed out was when he did, and I told the doctors when they came in, because I had to let them know that he had died, and that, and they have to tell you themselves. But I turned around and said I already knew that he had died, and that. And then my support worker came to the hospice, and brought our dog with her, because I said that we had a pet dog called Ben, and the hospice actually allowed my support worker to bring the dog to actually say goodbye to Alan as well.
Oh, was that Alan? Was that Alan's dog? Did you say?
It was my dog, but
Your dog.
the dog Ben actually was more attached to
Alan.
Alan
Oh,
towards
wow.
the ex, because of him being ill and that. So he was very protective.
How did that
You've
make
been
you?
together a long time, haven't you? How long had you two been together when Alan became ill?
I was with him for 10 years, near enough 10 years.
Yeah, that's really tough. Sorry, Pat, what were you going to say?
It's very, very important. I mean, Michelle and I can't emphasize this enough, that people with learning disabilities are involved in every step of the way. You know, it's really, really important that, you know, and I was involved, because if the doctor had known that I have a learning disability, I doubt whether it would have worked out the way it did.
Yeah, more like maybe Michelle's experience.
Yeah.
Michelle, well, it's so important that you're both talking about how, for both of you, your experiences were that the people that were close to you had an illness that meant there was some time while they were dying. It wasn't a sudden death, and that you were. You're both saying how important it was that you were involved in that, and you were helped to understand what was happening
with my father, because my father was in St. Joseph's Hospice, but my mum wanted him at home for the very till the very last minute, really, and he was taken in to the hospice on the Friday night, and he died on the Saturday morning. And I got a phone call from my mum saying that to get to the hospice as quick as I could, because he was going to die. So I did that. I got dressed and went to the hospital, and what they like to do at hospices is to get hold of you before you even get into the place where your loved one is, so that they can prepare you. But I was too quick for them. I dashed in, and of course I saw my father, and I thought he was dead. And I just screamed, and that is why they want you to be prepared, because there's everybody in that ward is going to face the same thing. They don't need people screaming out, although they understand that people do, but it's better if you don't, because it's not nice for other people. You know. And the nurse came, and she guided me, and she said, "He's not dead, he's just in a coma." And she said, "You can sit with him and hold his hand and talk to him. He'll hear you, because the hearing is the last thing that goes when you die." And I said that I loved him. And then my mum came, and then I said that because they were married for 57 years, you know, and that's half a lifetime. And I said to my mum, "Do you want to sit here where I was sitting?" And she said she did. So I moved and let her sit there. And we, she was holding his hand and stuff. And my brother said to my mum, is he cold?" So my mum touched his face, and he was cold. And my brother said that, "I think he's gone." And I turned around and I said, "Peter, he's been gone a while." held on, and I know I shouldn't say this. He held on for me. He held on for me.
Well, that's a wonderful thing too, isn't
You
it?
know,
That you know he did that.
and it, you know, it. He held on for my mum as well, I believe. That was a bit selfish the way I said it. Sorry, guys.
You both used that word today. I don't think so. I think these things are really important.
Yeah. But he would have been waiting for my mum as well. You know, I know that it was I'm very, I mean, if you can be lucky in death, I think I was, because, you know, in all of the experiences I've had around death, I've had time to grieve, because we knew my dad was very ill. We didn't know what was wrong. We suspected it was cancer. And then when it was confirmed, once it was confirmed, it was fine. I just got on with it. I was there to support my mum.
So you talked about time, and I'm that time to grieve. So tell us a bit more about that. Do you mean time to grieve a little before they died?
Yeah, because then you can, you know, then you're in the space to support whoever else is there as well, because it was very, very important that I was there for my mom.
So how were you supported after Alan died?
I was supported quite well because I had support workers around me, and I did get some cards and that. My support worker, she came with me to the funeral parlour and that, to arrange it. But on the net, I know it is, I shouldn't be working on the negative side, but when I did arrange it, his family, his daughters, were a bit annoyed because I had done the funeral arrangement without them. And but what I said was, well, you hadn't hardly been around and that, and I've been his partner, you know, his common law partner for like 10 years.
Yeah.
And that, and that was what he chose. He wanted me to do everything.
Yeah.
So I had support in arranging it all.
So you were still able to go ahead and do that?
Well, I'd already arranged it. I'd already gone and done it.
It can be a very difficult thing, can't it, when there's often, it's not unusual for there to be disagreements between different parts of somebody's family and relationships at a time when they die, and that must have been hard. So did they come to the funeral?
So what they ended up wanting, which they ended up eventually deciding, was it had to be pink. We didn't want it all to be traditional in black. They had to choose the music and that, which was okay.
There was a bit of sharing some of those things. Did Alan like pink? Was that a colour he liked?
No.
How did you feel about that? Was that okay for you?
No, because I prefer the personally, I feel that to me a funeral is the traditional. I'm old school,
Yeah.
personally. Is the traditional, black, black
Yeah.
skirt or suit and white blouse and whatever, or shirt,
Yeah.
for men, and
Yeah.
that's me,
Yeah. Yeah.
but no, they.
So you had to compromise a little bit. And how you said you had cards, because I think for many of my friends with who have a learning disability, my experience is they haven't been sent condolence cards, and I think that must be hard, because I know when my dad died, that cards were helpful. People said lovely things. How did you find that? Was it important that people sent you cards to acknowledge?
Yes, I did. But also at the funeral, I even had friends that came. I had staff. Some of the staff came that from Generate that
Lovely.
I was part of.
Mhm.
Even some of their managers that
Wonderful.
knew me, they came
Yeah.
Oh, that's lovely.
to support me. And where me and Alan used to go karaoke, the people that used to do the karaoke, they came to send that and brought flowers and that.
Lovely. You sound like a very loved couple, and people wanted to be there for you both. That's wonderful. Lovely.
Well, even though it was a sad occasion, it still came out as a nice, positive thing in a way.
That's lovely. Thank you, Michelle. Pat, is there anything you want to say before we finish?
I didn't get for I think my mum may have got condolences cards, but I didn't, and I didn't get condolences cards when my mum died. My Roy was with me when my mum died, and he came to the funeral parlour with me, and we did it together.
But you've both been amazing. I learned so much whenever I sit and talk with you both, because you're both so open, and you're thoughtful. So I think perhaps you wanted to say one thing, Michelle, before we end.
I was going to say one other thing. When I saw him in the viewing in the parlour, and that, he looked just like he did before he became ill.
So that was helpful to see the Alan who was your Alan before he was ill.
Right? And he was standing, right, in the corner of the room that we were in, and that. And
They had the coffin standing up.
No.
Okay. The coffin was open. The coffin was open.
Right? But
Silly me.
Himself, when sometimes certain people can see, like the spirits.
Yes.
Yeah.
Of that person.
I see what you mean. I see what you mean. Yeah. And for you could see him. He was there. His spirit was there.
Yeah, I could see him.
Oh, that must have been very comforting. Was that comforting thing for you? Yeah.
I could see him I saw him like that for a good while, and that till he knew that I was getting better and sort of like moving on, and then
you were getting stronger.
And there was a weird thing, right? I used to have a picture on my shelf in my front room of him and his family, right? With like this particular day, I came home, right, and it was on the floor.
Wow. What did you make of that, Michelle?
Well, this was when he died, right?
Yes.
To me, that was a sign that he was telling me to move on with my life.
And that sounds very helpful. Like he was really your guide. Yeah. Thank you so much, Michelle. That was wonderful. And thank you, Pat. Thank you both for having this conversation. You know, not
You're
easy
welcome.
conversations,
No.
but very important.